Good morning, everybody. Welcome to ChefConf. I'm Sundar Subramanian, EVP and GM of Chef Business here at Progress. Today's topic, of course, that we will explore is managing DevOps complexity. We are entering a world where things are changing fast, and that leads to complexity. What do I mean by that? So things are moving from on-prem to the cloud to the edge. Edge could be devices like set-top boxes, train signaling equipment, cameras, automated vehicles that are now moving around by themselves. 4G is coming in. It also means that all these different form factors are adding complexity, and that makes the DevOps systems more complex. It is also about having different types of hardware devices, different types of operating systems, different types of cloud, right? You may be using AWS, GCP, Azure, or Rackspace, or Yandex, AliCloud, all kinds of different kinds of clouds, different types of architectures, right? Are we migrating a legacy app to the cloud? Are we building something cloud native? All of these things matter, right? And they add complexity. The number of nodes, the number of apps, those are exploding like anything as well. And why all this is happening, we have to think and act upon security, compliance, collaboration, right? That's not easy. That's becoming more complex. You have different types of environment, development environment, test environment, integration environment, production environment. You have lifecycle support. All of that contributes to this complexity. You have to do collaboration, not just between dev and IT, but between designers, testers, security folks, line of business owners, all these different people, right? And then you have different types of code as well. Things that your own teams write, things where you use the services from a cloud. You may be using open source libraries. All of that matters. And we have to look at making sure that the code is trusted. You also have different kinds of containers, right? Situations on how you use these infrastructure, services that you use from these clouds. All of this is kind of making DevOps more complex, and we need to evolve with that, and we need to get outplayed to be successful in that space. And towards that, we conducted a survey with about 600 odd folks who work in IT, security, application development, DevOps areas. And this was done with different types of companies. And we just finished that survey, and I'm happy to share some ideas and thoughts that we got from that survey. That will help us guide as well as to what the situation is, what people are facing, what our customers and users are saying, what our community is going towards. So you could see that the persona or the people who participated in the survey range from decision makers, IT directors, CIOs, CTOs, to other folks in the IT space, CISOs, people who focus on security, people who work in app development, as well as compliance and audit. And we wanted to cover a broad swath of our customers and users. Of course, the type of companies, the size of companies is also fairly varied, and the sectors that they work in, right? From IT, telecom, to financial services, to retail. We wanted to cover different folks from different areas who can talk to us, who can share with us their experiences, and so that we can learn from this, and we can share as well our thoughts and learnings. So, and this has thrown up some interesting results. Some of them are along expected lines, and some are new to us as well. And that I am very happy to share today with you, and together we can figure out how to manage and successfully navigate this changing world. One of the things that we talk about and we understand from that survey is actually the factors that are driving these DevOps changes and the DevOps evolution that's happening, right? I think one of the most important things that we hear is the business factors that are driving this change. The thing that we hear always is the agility to bring products, apps, user experiences to market in an agile and quick sort of way, because businesses are evolving fast, and we need to make sure that we have the ability to respond to them fast. I think that's an important piece, and I think that we keep hearing about it again and again. The other thing that has happened recently is with COVID and other situations that we are seeing, people are working in a distributed manner, and being able to work in a distributed team setting across time zones in a very effective manner is super important. And while we work in that manner, how do we manage the infrastructure? How do we take care of security compliance? How do we develop in a fast way? I think those are important as well. I think the movement to the cloud, and making sure that the transition to the cloud happens seamlessly is important, because then you get to use the benefits that a cloud provides, right? Elasticity, the ability to grow as usage increases. I think the idea of spending only as much as you need at different points of time in a year, these are important aspects that you get from the cloud, and making sure that that happens is important as well. I think these kind of business factors have actually led to technology factors, right? Things that we need to keep in mind. I think that becomes an important aspect, that we understand what are the business factors and then what are the technology factors. And then on the technology side, I think the cybersecurity themes are becoming more and more important. We want security of infrastructure, network, data, processes, workflows, intellectual property. Making sure that while we do all these changes and transition, how do we ensure that nothing bad happens to these assets is an important aspect. I think if we can increase productivity while doing these changes, and if our development teams can be faster, that is amazing, right? I think these are important aspects that we hear from our users, from our community, and I think we are driven by some of these things. And while progress is all about making development teams more productive by simplifying the complexity of technology, attaining a high level of automation is the way we believe we can tame the complexity. And attaining that high level of automation is difficult for many organizations. It is also important to eliminate human errors, right? By removing the manual tasks and then freeing up all of our team members and humans to do what they are doing the best for, right? I think if we can find out the regular tasks and understand them better and then automate them, then we can tame the complexity and we can tame the difficulty of managing this transition really well. And I think complexity has increased the need for automation, and it has made the task of building automation also difficult, right? And the fact that there are many different activities that can be automated is part of the app dev lifecycle for us. For example, there is test automation, there is build automation, there is security automation, there is automated monitoring. All of these things are to be considered when we figure out how to tame the complexity. And I think the key is to find the right balance of automation, the right approach to automation. And from a DevOps perspective, finding the right way to support infrastructure as code, and now increasingly policy as code, right? Finding the right balance ensures that we can make the team members responsible for automation much more productive, while also leveraging the benefits of as a code approach, right? And that facilitates collaboration between teams using a human readable approach to code. And that serves as documentation as well. And realizing all the benefits of a coded DevOps artifact can be managed through version control, who did the last change, things like that, and achieving these benefits by relying on tools and platforms to remove the heavy work involved in coding is a big part of what we do. And I think that's an area that we will talk a little bit more about today. And I'm happy to share my thoughts and eager to hear your thoughts in the discussion sessions that we will have in the next few days. And I think that's an important aspect of how we think about our work, how we think about the products that we bring to market, and how we interact with our community as well. So to find that right balance of automation and figure out where we want humans to be involved in making basic decisions and important decisions, and which tasks are manual and should be automated, is the big part of what we think about when we talk about a human-free zone, right? I think once every team member is done making the changes to the code and it has been reviewed using a 2-person code commit and review process, automation should take over and manage the versioning and source code control, right? And that triggers an automation server and testing before promoting the binary or promoting the changes through test stage, integration testing, and then maybe production, right? where customers get involved, they start using the product and things like that. That means that our team members are freed up to do more strategic work while having the ability to approve and automate via post facto visible approval process for the workflow. I think that is important, and this reduces the surface area as well for all server access, right? And this is encoded in the policy. Policy is automatically pulled from the servers, enabling human-free operations in the areas which can be fully automated. And this is complemented by the ability to provide continuous scanning of devices, infrastructure elements based on policies. And these are not dependent on implicit trust, but these are encoded and they adhere to the policies that the company or the security team wants to make implementable. That's a big part of what we do. And I think we'll talk a little bit more about that. So typically what we hear is the security factors driving DevOps, things around that. I think there is a lot of concerns around public cloud workflows, right? When we start putting our infrastructure platform apps on the public cloud, how do they behave? Are we leaving gaping holes? Are we fixing the security post facto? Is the security through an implicit coded policy that we have ability to look at, implement? I think that is an important aspect. Increasingly in regulated areas of different industries, you have requirements from regulators and legal folks, right? For example, if you work in the healthcare space, making sure that you handle PII data in a HIPAA compliant manner. If you're working in financial space, PCI DSS, maybe CIS benchmark. If you're in other places in, say, regarding working with governmental organizations, they have their own standards. Making sure that that happens is very important. And that's what we hear from everybody that we talk to. I think concerns about financial losses when things happen in a bad way, and that leads to business disruption, either network or apps not being available. And then, of course, if something goes wrong, how does that impact the company, right? Does that company land into a public relations disaster or not? These are important factors, I think, which people think about when they think about security driving DevOps. And then we can, of course, talk about specific security use cases, right? What kind of security practices we do, which give you software quality? Are we doing defensive coding or not? I think improving the accuracy of and the reliability of the data that you get from security and compliance data, the log files that you would typically look at. I think making sure that the feedback is done to the app dev teams in such a manner that they are able to incorporate it into their development process. These are very important aspects and very important use cases when we talk about security in a cloud environment where DevOps is used. And that's the way DevOps is evolving today as we see it. Of course, all of this is possible if we can thread the needle through a common collaboration language, right? Between the different stakeholders, right? And what we mean by that is you have different stakeholders like the security folks, development folks, compliance folks, DevOps folks. Different companies have them differently. Some of them have them in the same team. Some of them have them in different areas. And what we typically do and what we have, which goes through all of them, is a simple feedback loop, right? We detect the problem, we detect a situation, we figure out how to correct it, we do the correction, and then we automate it so that what we learn from that problem, that mistake, doesn't happen again. And we rely on automation as code to make sure that it is happening smoothly next time. So before you do anything else, you must be first able to detect the issue and misconfigurations in the environment. And this is overlooked far too often, but it is critical to achieving velocity, right? Before you can know whether you're working efficiently, you need to know what target you are trying to hit, right? And once you do that, then you need to be able to correct any issues that you discover. And this covers everything from defining a base configuration for your organization's infrastructure, to deploying updates, to application code, to patching and upgrading systems, to remediating vulnerabilities. All of these have to be fixed. And these have to be done in a coded, automated sort of way so that you find a way to automate all of these processes, right? Both on the detection side as well as on the fixing side. And then once you do that, you are not spending time resolving the issues that have cropped up in the past, so that you have a fast feedback loop and you can rerun your detection after every change that happens to the environment, right? And that's how you get the speed, the agility that your engineering teams or dev teams need to get to market. I think that's an important aspect to make sure that this kind of an automation exists between, I would say, detect, correct, right? And then automate that loop. Of course, all of this is possible because you have heavy collaboration between different teams, as we talked about, and they collaborate over this concept and this language, which is policy as code. And that's how you make sure that collaboration happens in a very defined manner, right? And let's talk about this policy as code a little bit more. And essentially having a common language shared among your teams is important. That language is really the codification of security and compliance, where your stakeholders, from folks who care directly about security or compliance, or those who need to understand what's being codified in order to certify compliance, right? And managing security and compliance as code is the only way you'll be able to organize your organization or your company, or enable your company to have continuous compliance, right? And what I mean by continuous compliance is when you make a compliance report that maybe an auditor is using, many times we see that as soon as that report is made, within half a day or 1 day, the report is no longer valid. Your infrastructure has changed, configurations have changed. So you need continuous compliance for that, right? So I think that is the benefit of that code, which gives you continuous compliance, and security as code gives you many benefits, right? The ability to collaborate in a common language in human readable form, the ability to scale beyond a single system in a consistent, repeatable, and resilient and reliable way, the ability to shift your security testing left from the end of the process to as far into the development as we can, the ability to continuously monitor the status of your security and compliance posture. These are all benefits that you get when you adopt policy as code. And ultimately, driving security and compliance through code results in a continuous compliance state, right? Where security is no longer a barrier, but an enabler of speed, enabler of agility in developing what the market wants with the speed that makes us all successful. I think that's an important aspect that we have to look at. And we can talk a little bit more about what as policy as code means and what all is involved in that. So basically, there are a bunch of business benefits here. So you have codified policies, which help organizations better document their policies in an unambiguous, shareable, actionable way. I think that is super important. And what we mean by that is that every organization has policies that govern how they do their business. These policies define security standards, regulatory environments, and other organizational mandates, right? Typically, these policies are defined in text, in PDF documents or Word files or Excel files, and that text has to be interpreted by humans before it can be implemented or enforced. I think that's an important aspect that we need to understand, that how do we convert these text into an area where we can enforce it, right? And Chef's approach is to define and document these policies as unambiguous, human readable code. To get you started, we have significant library of Chef premium content that is curated by Chef, and it is CIS benchmarks or DISA stick certified, and you can use these in different use cases. And that enables organizations to attain a baseline policy adherence to known standards out of the box. I think when you get that, the time to value for you is really fast. And that's something that we are very conscious about. But the real power of Chef is its extensibility and flexibility. The Chef language encourages collaboration across security, compliance, and DevOps teams to create, modify, and extend codified policy to fit your business needs. Additionally, flexible waiver capabilities are available, and that allows the teams to turn on and off specific controls as required by the business. I think that's an important aspect. We can't have a single way of solving every problem in every organization, right? Waivers are important, and we do that by default. And by defining the code policy as code approach. It can be tested, and Chef has extensive capabilities to take in this input and make sure that we can have a policy compliant, secure infrastructure and application environment. And of course, this is done in an integrated manner for Chef through Chef. And it means that a single tool and a single artifact is used to deploy this, manage this, and secure this. And that means that the time to value and the amount of effort that all of our community and customers need to do is much less. And making sure that all of this happens within a single tool is important for us to make sure the time to value for the customer is much higher. And that's something that we look at, because for us, the people that we work with, the customers that we work with, the community that we work with, and making sure they are efficient is super important. And people are more critical than ever today, right? And we have seen this in the conversations that we do, of course. And as Yogesh called out in his keynote talk earlier today, people make technology happen, right? Technology is nowhere without the people who innovate. And while we can get into the people aspect of things later today, with a discussion on culture, the role of diversity and inclusion, our ability to effectively automate is even more challenging given the pandemic and the new working reality. Everybody is kind of distributed across different time zones, different ways of accessing the source code, the deployment infrastructure, and things like that. And of course, the great resignation, along with the challenge to hire and retain and get the right talent and skills, is super important. And coming back to DevOps, the organizational or people component was one of the most important focus areas that the idea was initially conceived around. And we focus on that a lot, both internally as well as for our customers. And of course, it is important that your plan should consider and keeping in mind hiring, retaining, reskilling, organizational structure, pipeline design. All of these things are things that we have to keep in mind. And that's what we hear from our survey as well. So the people-related developments are super critical and top of the mind for many people. I think investments in learning for developers, for engineers is super important. The time required, the investment required has to be kept aside and has to be done, right? And upskilling of developers and engineers to move into SRE roles, which are more specialized kind of roles, is super important. And we see that. And we see that a lot. Our community and customers see that. And we are here to help with that. And that's basically what I wanted to also share with you, that we have been able to do this full compliance, visibility, and audit support for all of our customers. And what we do is also to make sure that our customers, like say Jack Henry and Associates, for whom we did full compliance visualization in a proactive way, immediate remediation without drift, and known audits are successful even before they start. Those are possibilities that we bring to our customers. Of course, a customer like Cerner, who wanted stick compliance, we were able to get them from 44 to 90% compliance in 3 months, right? And that made them actually deploy in weeks instead of much more in terms of months earlier. And now we have been able to do that in hours also. And that happens because they treat operations as code. And I think that is something that we can help to our customers and our community. And I wanted to thank all of you for that. I think without all of your help and involvement, investments in time, resources, your expertise, your experience, all this is not possible. I think it's important for us to recognize that. And we really understand that. And we want to make sure that it's a close partnership with all of you toward that. And in a small way, we want to recognize some of the folks who have been with us in this journey. And some of these are individuals representing their background, their culture, and their companies and entities that they work with. And we wanted to share some awards with all of them through this recognition. And let me first talk through some of our community awards, and we call them Community Awesome Awards 2022. Of course, we start with Lance Albertson. He's a director in Oregon State University, the Open Source Lab. Then, of course, is Brittany Woods. She's a manager server automation and SRE at H&R Block. And of course, Takuya Noguchi, he is part of the Cloud Native Foundation, and he's an ambassador there. And all the contributions that these folks have done with working with Chef helping our community go forward, keeping us encouraged is super important for us. We really recognize it, and thank you everybody for actually getting there and making sure that we are successful together. And of course, I would be remiss if I don't talk about our partners who are larger entities, larger companies who are getting us through that. First, I wanted to recognize Blue Chip. Blue Chip is our emerging partner of the year, and they bring in strategic implementation skills of the newest technologies. They bring in public access to IT channels, and they have been doing this for quite some time now. Really thanks to them, and they are an amazing partner for us to get there. Of course, the technology partner of the year is TechRaiser for us. TechRaiser is a modern and agile company which is based with 150 employees in different European countries. They are a principal partner and an AWS premier tier services partner, and they provide innovation and promising solutions to their customers. Thanks, TechRaiser. And of course, going on, the public sector partner for us is Taphere. I think they bring in their skills and ability to deliver valuable customer solutions in the, I would say, federal space, in the public sector space. And I think their technologies include DevSecOps, software integration and deployment. And it's an amazing partnership that Taphere and Chef and Progress we have been able to achieve for our customers. And more broadly, I wanted to thank each and every one of you. You have spent a lot of your time, energy, expertise in working with Chef, in contributing to us, in contributing to the community at large, and building that competency and the pool of talent. I think that is something that I wanted to make sure that I place my gratitude on the record, and thanks to everyone. I look forward to interacting with you all the next few days. Some of us are remote, some of us are here, and I really look forward to hearing your perspectives and hearing what's going well, what we can do better, what should be some of our focus areas. Really appreciate all of you in participating together in this movement. Thank you.